Hello, fellow wrestling fans, and welcome to another episode of the Wrestling Crusaders. My name's Sean Waskrug, and with me, as always, is JPO Jordan Owens. And last week's episode, we talked about the landscape of WWE, what we've liked, disliked, where we see 2024 going. This episode, we're going to be talking about AEW and where we think 2024 is going to go. Likes, dislikes, what we see need to change, or what they need to double down on. AEW, they're entering their 6th year now.
Man, are we at 6? Wow.
I was like, are we at 6? Damn, it don't feel like it, but at the same time, it also feels like it has. It's nuts. It's actually lasted longer than WCW at its peak to a point. But yeah, AEW. I love AEW. And newsflash to people out there: you can love both WWE and AEW. You don't have to hate one.
That's something we have in common here. There's love for both. There's critiques for both. Yeah.
Yes, there's a love and hate. You can hate something and love it at the same time. You can want to see them both strive, because if they're both doing good, then wrestling's doing good. People, I don't know how many times I post something on Reddit or what have you and say, "Oh, this was great," and there's like 18, AEW sucks, WWE's better. Why can't you like both? 90% of the people on both shows were on both companies prior, and you cheered them on them. They're not. It's not like the back of the old days with WCW and WWE, where if they jumped ship, they were a fucking turncoat.
I think it was even MJF said it, and I think other wrestlers have said it. They're like, "Hey guys, like I'm watching WWE and having fun. WWE people are watching me having fun. Like we're not fucking hating each other. You shouldn't either."
Exactly, like when I was wrestling, we had 3 rival companies in this one little location, and I was very popular in one, and in 2 others I was known, but I wasn't as high up on the card. And I literally, like, one night wrestled all 3 shows. I went bam, bam, bam. I went from opener to middle to main, and everyone was like, "Sean, you're gonna piss somebody off." I'm like, how? They all 3 booked me. I'm not late for any of my bookings, and I'm being respectful. I'm coming in, I'm shaking everyone's hand, I'm going over the matches, I'm not rushing anybody. I am where I'm at, because they were all within like a 30-mile radius of each other. And it's like, if y'all have problems with it, come talk to me. But I'm working because I want to work. And I'm putting on 3 matches in a night. Anything, feel bad for me. I'm putting on 3 matches in a night, and I'm putting on 3 matches in 2 hours. It's like, I want to work. If y'all are going to have problems with that, that's on you guys. Why do you guys have issues with it? None of the wrestlers have issues with it. No one's coming to me saying I have heat for working at multiple locations, so why should you have heat? That's a you problem, not a me problem. And that's what I see with a lot of people with this AEW WWE thing is, oh, when Edge went over to AEW, Edge turned his back. No, he didn't. Edge contract was up. WWE let him go. He was allowed to leave. Same thing with Cody. Cody left AEW and went to WWE. Punk got fired. That's a different situation. Andrade. Eventually Andrade is going to be back in WWE. Why? Because his contract ended. It's not like this evil thing. Yeah, exactly. It's no different than it's no different than your favorite football team trading away a player. It's not the player's fault. Or if the player becomes a free agent, yeah, you might be mad that he didn't re-sign with his former team, but you know what? Maybe that team didn't want him anymore. If they got nothing for him, then they got nothing for him. Nothing annoys me more than a wrestler who sits at home getting paid. Like, no, they don't want to sit at home getting paid. They want to fucking work. Let them
That's
work.
what happened with Edge. Edge liked what AEW was offering better at the end, you know?
Exactly.
WWE wanted him to be the special guest guy, and Edge was like, "Let me wrestle while I can," you know?
Exactly.
My friends there.
I'm not a cake that you take out for special occasions to eat. I'm steak. Let me be steak.
Yeah.
Look at Christian.
I can only be steak for so much longer.
Exactly. Christian went from like just flash in the pan, showing up in WWE, which he was great when he was working, but Vince didn't like him, so he had little ups and valleys. But then he would just show up and do a little thing when Edge would show up to, hey, I want to go to AEW. And we're like, oh, okay, he's probably doing what he did in TNA. He'll show up. You know, he had a great match against Kenny Omega when he first came in. Yeah. And now Christian is one of the best fucking heels in pro wrestling.
Christian had maybe his best year ever for a dude that's been around since the 90s. Yeah.
And he's still going out there and he's putting on fantastic matches. He does not show his age in his matches. And And it's probably because he's taken those breaks to heal his body up as best as he could. And he is captivating. Like we were saying on the previous episode with Punk, I am never going to be bored when Christian comes out. I never hear... Now, granted, my girlfriend hates Christian, but she hates the character that Christian plays.
Hates
She
it the
doesn't
right
hate
way.
Christian, the person. Because every time he comes out, I immediately do the... And she's like, no, put your hand down. And I was like, he is a good father. we have this little back and forth banter. But it's an enjoyable thing because we're actually getting ready to see Collision here in like 10 days. They're going to be here. So
nice.
I will be on TV because I made sure to get the hard cam side. So I will probably be on TV for Collision. It's the same night as Rumble too. So I'm like, so literally we're gonna go to Collision and then have to drive home. It'll be like late, and we're like, all right, we're gonna watch a Rumble now. Like we probably won't get to finish it.
Stay off Twitter and the internet, buddy.
I told us like we were gonna have to make sure that no one sitting around us is being a douchebag and say, "Oh, dude, blah blah blah, won the Royal Rumble."
Oh my God, yeah, no, you're fucked. You're fucked. I'm sorry, Sean.
I know. It's gonna be very fucking hard. I'm hoping that people that are watching this are just gonna be so focused on AEW that they're not gonna be looking on their phones saying, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah, Rumble." It's gonna be rough.
I don't know.
It's gonna be rough. If I make it through that night without being spoiled, I'm gonna be so fucking happy.
I know.
Because what's gonna happen is we're gonna get home, and we'll probably get like at least because the women always go on first. We'll probably get through the women's rumble, maybe a match too. We're probably gonna be too fucking tired. We're probably gonna go to bed, and we'll have to wake up and like, hey, we're watching Rumble because I can't go on anything and watch anything. I can't go on my phone or anything until we finish watching Rumble. And it's going to be a very, very stressful like weekend for me, but I'm excited because I've always wanted to see AEW. I was afraid because of where I'm located that I wouldn't be able to unless I had to travel hours away. I only have to travel an hour to see them. Sadly, the tickets are not selling well. Like they're not. There's like at least 75% of the tickets are still available. It's rough. So they're gonna have to figure out something. All I know is that the prices are dropping. But yeah, it's not looking good. Which makes me mad because I was like, well, then they're not gonna come back. You know, yeah. I want AEW to do well. I want them to prosper because if they prosper, then everyone prospers. But yeah, with AEW, I mean, when they first came out, I was excited. Because I love Kenny Omega. I love the Young Bucks. I love these guys, and I would get to see them when they were on New Japan or Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or something like that. I didn't get to see them anywhere else. So you kind of only got to catch them when you got to catch them. And now they're like, hey, we're doing our own company. It's like, well, that's great. I hope it does well, and it did. And you're starting to, I knew of him, but I didn't know who he was as MJF. It's like I heard of him. Like you'd see like results of MJF or there's this uncovered kid MJF. And he's like, well, yeah, cool, but there's no way for me to watch him. I can't see him. Same thing with Orange Cassidy. Then you finally get to see these guys. And you're like, okay. It took me a little while to get on the Orange train, I'll admit, but eventually I was like, okay, I finally get the Orange of it all. Like I actually am excited when I see Orange now. Whereas before I was like, because sometimes those kind of wrestlers piss me off because I'm like, you're going out there, you're making a joke of it. I still to this day, granted, I know he's loved. I have never got Toriano. I've never gotten him as a worker. He annoys the fuck out of me, and it always pisses me off when he's in the G1, and like top tier wrestlers lose to him and make him an idiot, like Omega or some shit. And it's like, no, they would never lose to Toriano. Like, fuck that guy. And with Orange, it was one of those things. I was like, this guy's like coming in just lightly tapping people. It's like he'd get murdered by like 80%. And Darby, that was another one, Darby Allin. It's like, okay, he's a Jeff Hardy wannabe. No, he's not. He's a lot more than that. But AEW is a home that allowed these people to grow and become mainstream and stuff. And what I love about AEW that WWE really should start adapting, but they never will because they're WWE, is that AEW allows them to go work elsewhere. Hey, we're not utilizing you right now. Go work to independents. Hey, you want to go work at AAA? Go work at AAA. Hey, you want to go? Hey, Eddie, you want to go wrestle G1 Climax? Go ahead, go over there for a month. Have fun. Go build your brand and come back, and then we'll utilize that and make you a bigger star. There's so many people that like, you see him on God, what was AEW's YouTube show? Dark. Was it Dark?
Dark, yeah, Dark and
Or
Elevation.
Elevation or whatever, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah. They're like, oh, they're 20-0 in their last 20 matches. I'm like, yeah, that's on Dark.
yeah.
I mean, come on.
They used to really love pumping up the scores with that.
Exactly. It's like, oh, they're 58-1 in their last 59 matches. Like, not on Dynamite, they aren't.
Yeah,
But I love that they allowed them to go out and branch out and do stuff. And granted, they need to be corralled a little bit. Have an actual writing team, not maybe let the wrestlers all run the asylum a little bit, because Tony kind of does, but he's getting better to a point. But AEW has always been a fun alternative to WWE. And I don't want to say alternative as like a negative thing. It's just WWE has their way. AEW has their way. Sometimes they'll mesh, but they are two different kinds of shows. What are your thoughts on AEW?
well, to me, to bounce off that, man, to me, that's what keeps me going as a wrestling fan is alternatives. I mean, I like, we said before, we love WWE, we love AEW, we can critique both. They both have their pluses and minuses. So to me, I think if there was just a WWE, I don't think I'd still be here, man. Like, I've always needed the TNA, the Ring of Honor, the WCW, and now AEW, and that's what I love is that we have this alternate, thing that has sometimes different philosophies. The wrestling's over the showcase sometimes with AEW, and from the get go, I was pumped, man. I really was, you know what I mean, because it really felt like the first time in a while that you truly had kind of this real potential second brand. TNA had some bright spots throughout the years, you know what I mean? Whether it was getting Kurt Angle and whatnot, but almost from the get go, like they were having bigger arenas than TNA's ever touched. And they major TV, TNT and TBS, other than their run with Spike, TNA's never had anything anywhere near that. They're on Access, as you said. I didn't have till recently, until I switched over to Sling. So, I've been, unless I do their YouTube channel, I don't have TNA. If you have Sling or any kind of cable, you have TVBS and TNT. And from the get go, they were able to get Chris Jericho. That's another name that I think for a long time no one ever thought would leave WWE. You know what I mean? Fast forward, Daniel Bryan. Fast forward for a little bit, CM Punk, Adam Cole. You know what I mean? All these guys that we kind of thought might stay there have flopped over. There's been a lot of bright spots, a lot of detriment too. People do get injured, people get sick, things don't work out, like the CM Punk thing. So, I don't know if Tony. I do think sometimes maybe Tony needs a little bit of help, but they got a fantastic roster. I've never not been excited for a pay-per-view. Usually there's always something really good on pay-per-view. They seem to build those up pretty good here. As somebody that's, balling on a budget, I hope they find a streamer, because $50, if they're doing it every month, I need them to figure something out, because that's a lot of money.
I agree. Everyone keeps saying it's going to be Max because they're working with Warner Brothers. And so, yeah. Bring it to Max, because I'm sorry, Bleacher Report is a pain in the ass. It is a pain in the ass. It's not as bad as Peacock, but it's a pain in the ass.
Oh, what? I'd rather do Peacock.
Dude, WWE Network was so much better than Peacock.
Oh, I miss the network, and that's a different subject. I would say they've really been being lazy about like adding to the Peacock recently too. Like it's pretty much just the pay-per-views and like the B shows now. But anyway, we're talking about AEW. Yeah, I hope they get something with HBO Max or something, just because if they are doing pay-per-view a month, and they were for a while there. We had one, I think, August, September, October, November, and December.
They were used to be just like 4 a month, and then they added like an door to make it 5. But I think we had like 8 pay-per-views in the last month or last year.
Yeah, you had Wrestle Dream and World's End were brand new,
which were great. Well, World's End was probably their World's End and Full Gear were probably a step down, but that was because of injuries. They kind of had to work with what they had to work with. And I do think All Out and All In within the same week. That was the first pay-per-view I bought. That was the first. I bought All In, and then I was like All Out a week later, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do $50.
Do you I know you said you don't do, but like TNA has done something interesting in the last couple of years where they'll have 4 big $40 pay-per-views. Like Hard to Kill was $40. I want to say Slammiversary, Bound for Glory, maybe something else, right? But every month, that's not that. They have like a B pay-per-view in a way that's like a part of their streamer. That's just part of it for free with the streamer.
Kind of like what WWE had with like their big 4 and then had it in your house.
Yeah, and then in your house, exactly. Like that's kind of how I felt the All In was. It's like All In, no offense, I guess Edge's debut helped, but on paper, like Was that a main event? You know what I mean, kind of thing. Like that should have, if that was just like an extra, like on HBO Max, it would have been cool. But
Yeah, it was almost like they were like,
$50,
well, we still got to run Chicago. It's like, do
yeah,
you know? You don't. You don't have to run
yeah.
Chicago. I swear to God, if I lived in Chicago, I would have no money because I'd be going to every fucking show, and they go there like every 4 weeks. It's like, damn, Chicago, share the wealth with some other people here.
Hey
Damn.
man, you got to go where it draws, and if Chicago keeps spilling out money, they're gonna keep going to Chicago because
I
even
mean,
TNA was in Chicago for a while.
yeah, I mean, with Punk gone though, they're probably not drawing as much as they used to, but they still should draw pretty well. But yeah, I mean, so in terms of, and one thing that I said, and we kind of touched on a little bit, what I love about AEW, like I said, the alternative to it is it's the closest thing to bringing Pro Wrestling Guerrilla to the limelight. Which people who don't know Pro Wrestling Guerrilla is an independent circuit in Reseda, California. Excalibur is one of the owners to it with Super Dragon, and a lot of these guys you love watching today grew their brand, grew their characters through this company in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Kevin Owens, Adam Cole, Sami Zayn, even though he didn't technically wrestle there, but his brother, El Generico. Yeah, El Generico. Yes. The Young Bucks, Candice LeRae, Johnny Gargano, Roderick Strong, all these guys you guys love and watch grew their brand through here, much like Punk and Joe did through Ring of Honor. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla was to those people. And from a wrestler's perspective, I hated when the crowd was that close to the apron and there was no guardrails, because there were times where I was so good at being a heel, fans would like try to grab my leg on the apron. And like there was one match I literally was rolling up a guy and put my feet on the ropes, and these fans went up and pushed my foot off the rope. I'm like, that's the fucking finish, you asshole. It's like, God damn it. And I had to like fight to keep my foot on the rope and not have the ref look, because these guys try to fucking knock my leg. And I was like, get the fuck out. Like, what are you doing? But like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla though, everyone is in on it. They knew what was going on, and the atmosphere was insane. That was like a bucket list thing that I never got to accomplish. It was like, if I ever got to, I wanted to wrestle in Japan, and I wanted to wrestle at Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, because those places were just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they brought that energy on a mainstream level to AEW. Granted, because most of those wrestlers work there. Now when they don't run Pro Wrestling Guerrilla as much as they used to, but when they do, they kind of, now it's like, oh, we're bringing AEW guys into Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, which I love their new.
Chris Jericho debuted last year.
Yes, he did. That new venue is gorgeous. Yeah. It's a gorgeous ass venue. But yeah, that's why AEW, like I said, that alternative, because they will do that crazy shit. They're not worried about the PG rating, because they know that people want that violence. People want that.
Yeah.
I don't want to say gore, but yeah, but people want that attitude-esque kind of stuff. They don't want to go to the extremes of like CZW, where even I'm like, nah, I'm not down for that. But they can go and do some crazy stuff and have fun, but also have phenomenal, just straight up wrestling matches and storylines and tag team wrestling, like we were talking about in the previous episode, where they let tag team wrestlers matter and work. So for you with AEW, how are you seeing 2024 go? What are you liking? What they're working on? What do you want to see change? What do you want to see adapted?
We're in a weird kind of transition, I feel, with AEW. We had the end. Yeah, we just had the end of am I still good? Okay, I thought I froze for a second. We just had the end of MJF's reign. Which I didn't necessarily coming, was it partly enhanced by an injury? Possibly. The devil thing has come off now. I'm not too mad at the end of the devil reveal as some people are. I will argue like, hey, if it was something super wacky, you would have hated that. So the fact that it was just the thing that kind of made sense.
Here's what I think about the devil angle real quick. The devil angle was never going to be a thing. Adam Cole and MJF were supposed to break up when they were supposed to break up, but they got so fucking hot and so damn popular when they did. They're like, well, we got to keep running with this. And they're like, well, eventually we're going to have to end this. Let's do something like this. And then, of course, Adam ended up getting hurt, which really kind of fucked it up. But I feel like they just kind of wrote themselves into a corner because they got too popular that they couldn't let it go, because the merch was crazy and the double clothesline and all this kind of stuff, which comedy gold. I don't think anyone realized how good Adam Cole and MJF were going to be together. They're like, well, eventually
Sure.
we're going to have to end this, and the devil angle is what came out of it. But I like for anyone who was watching it, like if you didn't think Adam Cole was going to be the devil, like really, like come on, like it was written on the walls. Like when he was it, I was like, like when he finally revealed himself to be the devil, I'm like, oh, thank God they didn't fuck it up. Because I was like, oh,
Right, yeah.
please don't mess this up and like have it be like Jack Perry, which nothing against Jack Perry, but it's just like that would have been like, really, Jack Perry of all people? But it's like, would it be an Adam, and then you had everyone else, which I was a little bummed. I was hoping Kyle O'Reilly was going to be one of the other people, which they could always add him. But I was always like, what if it's Britt? Like, where's Britt? Because Britt's been gone since Adam's been gone.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what's Britt? Britt's the devil because Adam's injured. And so Britt's pulling the strings, and then it's going to be all of them. And no Britt yet, no Kyle. Because there was one guy that I was like, that's got to be Kyle because his like movements. I was like, that's Kyle O'Reilly. And then he wasn't one of the group, which I'm okay with that. But they could always add him.
That could always be revealed later. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to have Cole as the leader, but that could always be a fun reveal for maybe the way he gets the title off Joe, if that's where they're going to end with this. I don't know, yeah.
But I cut you off. Keep going.
Oh, no, you're good, man. No, I'm just saying, like, you know, I'm not as high as I once was, but I'm still open. I mean, I love the fact that, you know, I'm even cool with the fact that, you know, Joe has the title right now. I didn't necessarily see that coming. You
I'm
know, there's
happy.
always a little, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Joe fan. I mentioned before in the WWE one with Punk. Like, I was a big fan of those hour matches. So I've been a Joe mark for a little while as well. You know, they again got tremendous talent here. You know, I mean, I'm so excited for Swerve. I think Swerve has had a tremendous breakout year, and honestly, I think he's the one to maybe take the. It's weird because like, oh, are they going to run with Cole? But do they have some time for Swerve to get a run in? And in the meanwhile, I think Swerve should have the title by the end of the year, if not even next month or whatever they want to pull it. Because I think Swerve's great. We mentioned before, Christian's having the time of his life. I think we've just started with Edge, you know what I mean, or Copeland. So I mean, still a lot of good on the table here. You know, I mean, if there's little tweaks that can be made, some of the booking here. I mean, I one of the most laughable moments of last year was, well, MJF's hurt. We'll let Adam Cole, who's also really hurt, wrestle, huh?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. I was like, I mean, clearly he's not going to wrestle. Like he's gonna, but that's the thing though. By doing that, so we were like, Adam Cole's faking the ankle injury. Like he's the devil. He's fake. I was like, no, his ankle was fucking shattered, guys.
But management doesn't know that. To me, that just made Tony Khan and management look dumb. Like it was just like, why would they allow this? And then what's even funny is after he revealed the mask, and then who was it? Like they came out to like confront them. They had like security go like, he's not cleared. He's not cleared. And it's like,
that was
we're gonna let him wrestle in the main
event
2 months out.
Yeah, it was the medical guy who's like buffer than shit.
But they were gonna let him wrestle 2 months earlier. So like, what do you mean now they're yelling that he's not cleared? Like, I don't know. There's that. And how many times are they gonna set up a match where it's just like, hey, how are you doing? Interruption, and here's your match for next week. Like that's become very cliched, but there's still a lot of good, man. I still enjoy TV every week. I've actually never missed a Dynamite or a Collision or a Rampage so far. I'm 100 on it.
I will say that I will look at the card on Rampage and I'll be like, I can probably skip Rampage this week.
I'll be honest. To me, it's more of just a matter of I want to keep the streak going as long as I can.
Because like I'll admit, this past week's Rampage, I looked at the card and I was like, I'm already busy. Like I don't have enough time, but I will watch Matt Sydal versus Swerve. But I don't.
It was quick, actually.
It was quick. I was expecting like a longer match.
Pretty quick.
But yeah, I was
pretty quick put Swerve over match.
Yeah, it was basically a place to get him pushed. But I was a little bummed. I was like, oh, dude, they're gonna kill. And because I mean, I know Matt. I've wrestled with Matt, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm so excited for this. And then there's like, oh, it's like 4 minutes. I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Yeah. But Collision and Dynamite, I've never missed. Rampage, like I said, it depends on the group. Battle of the Belts, I get they're doing a Clash of the Champions thing, but Battle of the Belts,
that show,
they just stop.
They did okay on the last one because at least the street fight was kind of like, you know, an interesting match on paper. But there's been plenty of Battle of the Belts where it really is very skippable.
It's
I
just
think
like
I've seen them all as well, just based on
they just
kind of keeping straight
randomly
going.
pop up. It's like, why are we doing this? Like,
They pop up. There's been plenty too where it's literally it pops up. I swear to God, like they'll mention it on like the Dynamite or Rampage before for the first time ever. Oh, by the way,
yeah,
Saturday we're doing this. It's like, okay.
yeah,
It's not a very
the,
well like pushed thing.
no, it's just like, oh, we have to decide to do this. Okay, cool. Well, could you at least like advertise it properly or say, Battle of the Belts, we're doing this? And it's like, no,
Yeah,
no. And I look at the card,
and
I'm
then
like,
like
eh.
yeah, if you look at the last one, like 2/3, like I could believe there's a chance Jericho and Guevara could get it, so I'll give him credit for that to a degree. But no, you're not randomly putting Preston Vance, who's had like 2 matches over Orange, and even Anna Jay. Like again, that's like a quick like she just got the number one contendership. Now we're doing this match. It's just a match to do a match.
Yeah, which granted, like I said, but previously talking about on my WWE episode,
Mm-hmm.
they're at least making the champions work. They're wrestling.
Oh yeah.
MJF, no, MJF, but that was his character, picking and choosing when he got to wrestle and stuff like that. But that's the one thing that
Well, even he though was pretty consistent. Like he had TV matches, like not every week, like in Orange Cassidy, but it's definitely a league above of Roman type booking.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at in a calendar year, how many times did MJF defend his belt compared to Roman? I mean, they're, considerably different. But yeah, I mean, granted, we're allowed to have these matches like an Anna Jay versus Julia Hart, where it's not going to happen. But at least Julia is still wrestling, and I mean, look at let's put Rhea up to the test here. How many matches has Rhea had in the last year compared to Julia Hart in this tiny little nugget that she's had the belt, or even Tony, which Tony's actually been a little more spread out. But it's one of those things where in AEW, you're gonna work. You're wrestling. You're going to wrestle. Unless you're hurt, you are going to work your contract. You're not going to do this like per dates crap that WWE does. It's like, oh, I did a rundown. That counts. It's like, no. Brock Lesnar coming out and beating someone up for 3 minutes does not count as a date on his contract. Like, you're going to work some matches, and you're going to consistently work. Edge is coming out here doing every week. I'm so excited that he added this open challenge thing because I was like, yes, that means I'm gonna see Edge when I see them in next week. I'm gonna see Edge. I'm a little bummed I'm not gonna see MJF though. A little bummed about that. But yeah, it's with AEW. It's one of those things where I love it because we're getting pay-per-view caliber type matches on weekly television. We're seeing matches that are considered dream matches for free. When Omega and Danielson wrestled for the first time for free, you're like, oh my god, I would have paid for this. I would have paid for this, guys. But thank you. Give me more, please. They make sure that you are watching the television shows. Granted, there's certain Dynamites. I was like, wow, you guys really did not have a game plan going into this show tonight. And there's times where they've had to audible because of injuries. Like most recently with Keith Lee getting hurt and not being able to wrestle at World's End, so they just threw Dustin in there. But you know what? They turned out a pretty damn good match. That's the great thing I love about AEW is that you can look at a card and on paper, you're like, there's like 2-3 matches that I really would pay to see. But you know what? I know if I pay for this, every match is going to deliver on something.
Yeah.
I'm going to enjoy probably 80% of what I'm watching. I may not be going in expecting to enjoy it, but by the end of it, going, you know what, that's pretty damn good.
I will say, and I think Raw and SmackDown's getting a little bit better at this. But if I was just a buying customer, I'd be more open to blindly buying, as in like a ticket buyer, blindly going to a Dynamite than like a Raw or SmackDown for a long time.
I would, just because of what we talked about last episode, because when I was telling my girlfriend this because she's like, well, would you like to go to a Raw? And I go, no, absolutely not. And she's like, why? I was like, because this is what happens when you're watching Raw or SmackDown. At home, when you go to commercial, it's commercial. But what the wrestlers are doing, I think it was when Orton first came back and Orton and Roman was in the ring. They had someone showed video of the commercial break. Orton's just walking around outside, just bouncing around to his music, and Roman's in the ring just wait. I was like, that is what you're doing when you go to a Raw or a SmackDown. You are sitting there and you are waiting for them to go, and we're live. Yeah, and when they're not live, you're expected there to just to shut up and not do anything. Well, that's not fun. But with AEW, though, you're going to the show, you're getting the show. If I'm going to go to WWE, I want to either go to a pay-per-view or a house show because you're getting what you're getting. For AEW, I have never felt that they're doing that, where it's like, oh, commercial, and we're just going to hang out and not do anything. It's like, no, you're getting the full meal whenever you go to an AEW show, which I'll find out firsthand when I see Collision here next week. But with them, it's always, I'm never feeling like I'm gonna miss something. I'm gonna miss something if I don't watch. Like, it's, either something cool is really gonna happen, like a cool spot, cool move, or there's gonna be someone that's gonna randomly show up. Now, sometimes some of these surprise appearances turn out to be fucking nothing. But you know what? It makes me tune in to watch. And what I love about Collision is that we don't get on Dynamite. They do feel like two different shows. But with Collision, I'm always going to get like a 20 to 30 minute long main event. Dynamite, not so much. Dynamite's closer to kind of Raw in that sense. It's like I might get a 10-minute main event, something here, but with Collision, I am always going to get my money's worth in wrestling. Whether it's FTR and House of Black, I'm going to get a 20 to 25, maybe 30-minute long match to end the night, and I'm excited for that. Because they're going to go out there and they're going to fucking work, because they give them time to put on a great match. Not every guy, because every match is like, oh, I would love to see Penta against Swerve in a 20-minute match. We're probably not going to get that. But if they're on Collision, I just might get that match. And that's what I loved about Continental Classic, because I love the G1 climax. And I was so excited. I was like, oh, they're doing it.
Yeah.
I hope they do it right. And for the most part, they did. I was just
enthralled. It was wrestling centric, yeah.
Exactly. It was a wrestling centric. I love that they did the thing where like no one's allowed at ringside. If they are, they're in big trouble. I would have wished that we eventually would have had that happen so we could see the repercussions. But what's funny is like my girlfriend, she watches it. Like, I'm watching it with an analytical, I've been in the business brain. And if you can bring me out of that and turn me into a fan, which AEW has done and WWE lately has done, then great. She's watching it as a fan. So she'll like get totally into the stories and the characters and shit like that. She got pissed every time Garcia wrestled because Menard was out there. She goes, why is he allowed out there? He's with Garcia. He shouldn't be at ringside. No one else is allowed at ringside. I'm like, he's not really with him anymore, and he's just doing color commentary. No. Why aren't the Guns and Juice allowed out there? It's like she was just like into that.
She makes a fair point, though.
She does make a fair point. She makes a very, very fair point. Because near the end of the thing, Menard was getting involved. Not necessarily for Garcia, but they were fucking with him, which has actually helped Menard's character. Because it's like every time he was on screen, I was like, ugh. But now I'm like, actually, Menard's growing on me a little bit. But
is he making nipples hard?
No. There's some, and like I said, like there's certain characters or certain wrestlers that were not getting their time of day at WWE that are coming over here, are given chances to do things like Toni Storm, who's taken this Marilyn Monroe type character where you're like, this isn't going to work. And she is into the hemisphere killing this. And then you have people like Swerve, where it's like, oh, did he not get his chance? Like, no, Swerve, and yeah, Prince Nana was the best thing to happen to Swerve. Because Swerve was great. And he has a good song. But then you brought Nana in to do the dance. And you're like, now you have a reason. Like Jericho with Judas, you now have something that brings everyone in. And now people are paying attention to when Swerve comes out for Nana's dance. But now people are paying attention to the worker. And Swerve... And I've been watching him since Lucha Underground when he was Killshot. And I was so happy when he was hitting it off in Hit Row, but then he, went to the main roster, and what happened when Vince was in charge? Most NXT guys, they get shit on. Swerve got shit on. And then he went to AEW and was like, okay, let's see him grow. And he kind of was like just there, but now he found his groove and he's growing, and now he's like the hottest thing in the company right now. And like you said, I'm happy that Samoa Joe is champ. I'm so happy we got Joe as champ because Joe deserves to have at least one good title run. Swerve needs to be champion. I don't want Swerve to be champion too soon because I don't want Joe to be a transitional champ. Joe deserves to have a legitimate reign. I think Adam Cole I love Adam. I want him to be champion, but right now, that is not where the cards are. I think Adam, when he's healthy, should get a shot, and then a returning MJF costs him the championship, and then they feud because that feud is going to be so hot they don't need a belt to elevate that feud. So you add Swerve into the mix, and eventually you make Swerve work himself up to get to that title shot for Joe, whether it's Joe or somebody else. But I think Swerve should be the one to dethrone Joe. I don't want Joe to lose the belt too fast. I would love Joe to keep the belt, honestly, till All In, because I think Swerve winning the belt at All in front of that big ass fucking crowd in London would be through the roof. Now you're gonna have to give something for Swerve to do till then, which that's up to them to figure that shit out. But I don't want them to wait too long to where Swerve, kind of like what they did with Wardlow, where Wardlow was this hot, but then they did nothing, and then he just kind of simmered out.
Yeah, that's why I think Owen's a bit too long, but I agree that I don't want.
I just don't want it to be. I don't want it to be Revolution and Swerve takes the belt off Joe, because like, well, Joe didn't really get to defend the belt at all. Like,
I know. Well, I think there's a good medium ground somewhere. That's what I'm thinking.
The problem is, like I said, they don't have monthly pay-per-views, so it's like, well, the next one.
They might though. I wouldn't be surprised. It seems like they're skipping. Well, they're obviously skipping January, but like I wouldn't be surprised if they throw in March and April.
Yeah. In terms of things to change, as much as I love tournaments, they need to tone down the tournaments. They need to. I miss them going back to their ranking system. Like, they still keep track of the wins losses. Have the ranking system matter again. Who's the number one ranking? Who's number 2? Who's number 3? Who's number 4? Have those guys wrestle each other. Have them build and climb up the ladder. WWE tried that. It didn't really work. But with AEW, it was working. And I think that they could reestablish that and get that to come again. And especially because they're keeping track of the rankings. They need to make Rampage feel a little more impactful instead of feeling like a C show. They need to add a little bit more to it. Maybe have something that's extended from Dynamite bleed into Rampage, because Collision is kind of it's SmackDown, if you want to call it that. But like I said, and they need to get. They have so many people. They have so many people that you have them like show up, and you're like, oh, cool, that was great, and then you could go 2 months without seeing them again. Yeah. And so they kind of need to have a little more structure with their guys, because I love what they do when it works. When it doesn't, and we'll talk about the women on a separate episode, because I want to give the women their own show. But that's just I was like, there's a lot they need to do, but they need to tighten it up a little bit. I don't want them to go full WWE, but they need to tighten themselves up a little bit, make it cleaner, and don't let the wrestlers run the asylums. Tony needs writers and to help him and to kind of control it. Now the wrestlers do have great ideas, but they need to like I said, lock it in a little bit. Anything else you'd like to add for AEW?
No, just hopefully we're at a point now to where the roster's a little more secure. Hopefully they have an idea going forward. We hadn't even talked about people like Bryan Danielson and Mox and the talents there. Just like you said, maybe a little more structure. Do you think Tony could use another person in his ear that might help certain things kind of flow better? And but I'm still excited about where the year where the year can go. I think. Just like WWE, I feel like we're almost like a new beginning here in 2024 as to where we could potentially go. So I'm definitely hopeful.
You know who we forgot about? Ospreay.
Yeah, Ospreay hasn't even touched upon. Yeah,
Ospreay's coming, and I'm sorry that could be that is the only thing that I could see if you allow Swerve to get the belt quickly off Joe. Ospreay versus Swerve at All In London. There you go. Okay, so now we got the booking train going. That would be the only way I'd be okay with Joe dropping the title quickly, would be for that, so we can get Ospreay, Swerve in London, because Ospreay and Swerve, that'd be amazing.
That sounds good. And when I say quickly too, like I said, I wouldn't be, and they do it on Dynamite too sometimes, so it could be a big Saturday Painted Days Slam Dynamite or something like that. But maybe give Joe a nice win at Revolution. Not too long after that, I think Swerve's ready.
Yeah, Swerve is,
and I love the idea of that.
Swerve has been ready. There's a lot of wrestlers who are ready, but you can't have 18 belts on a show. That's New Japan. You got to have a select few, and I mean that's the other thing too. With Christian, he's been doing great at the TNT title, but gotta start giving these guys some belts. Start elevating them to higher things. Christian doesn't need the belt. Christian can keep doing that thing without the belt. We need to move that belt on to somebody else. But we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. What do you guys think? What do you love about AEW? What don't you like? What do you want to have change? What do you think they should double down on? Let us know in the comments below. We'll be coming back here next time to talk about the reign of Roman Reigns. Was it good? Is it bad? It might still be going. Who knows? It could end here at Royal Rumble in the Fatal 4-Way. But let us know what you guys think. And until next time, I'm Sean Waskrug. That is Jordan JPO Owens. But next time, I bubble at the end real quick here. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Go watch some wrestling. Go have some fun.
So, goodbye. Mwah. And good night. Bang!